Volcanic ash swirled across the runway as the transport plane's engines wound down. The heat hit like a physical blow. Oppressive, suffocating, inescapable. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi stepped onto the tarmac at Chidori Airfield. The date was June 19, 1944. The place was Iwo Jima. His age was 52. His orders came directly from Prime Minister Hideki Tojo's office. The mission was simple in its horror. Defend this barren rock to the last man. Mount Suribachi dominated the southern horizon. Black sand covered everything. The landscape stretched endlessly, barren, lifeless, volcanic. This career officer understood immediately what his assignment meant. Death waited here. His wife Yoshi already knew. He had told her the truth before leaving. Even his ashes might not return home. The strategic importance was undeniable. Iwo Jima sat 750 miles south of Tokyo, a critical position between American bases in the Marianas and Japan's homeland. 3 airfields gave Japanese fighters the ability to intercept B-29 bombers heading north. American capture would eliminate early warning systems. Emergency landing fields would be established. P-51 Mustang fighters would gain bases for escort missions to Tokyo. The implications were devastating for Japan's defense. Neither Kuribayashi nor the 21,000 soldiers destined for this island knew what approached. The bloodiest battle in Marine Corps history was about to begin. A 36-day nightmare that would demonstrate both futility and extraordinary courage. The assignment represented honor and death sentence combined. Emperor Hirohito had granted Kuribayashi a personal audience on June 8, 1944, a rare privilege before departure. Yet historians like Kumiko Kakehashi suggest deliberate selection for a suicide mission. Kuribayashi had made enemies among ultra-nationalist circles. His realistic views about American industrial might had marked him as defeatist. From 1928 to 1930, he served as deputy military attaché in the United States. He traveled extensively, studied at Harvard, observed American capacity firsthand. His letters to his wife revealed dangerous honesty. America was the last country Japan should fight. Its industrial potential was huge and fabulous. The people were energetic and versatile. Such realism challenged official doctrine, emphasizing spiritual power over material resources. Despite personal misgivings, Kuribayashi approached his mission professionally. Innovation would define his strategy. He began inspecting existing defenses immediately. The garrison was digging beach trenches according to standard practice. Defend at the water's edge. Contest every landing. Die gloriously on the beaches. Kuribayashi ordered this work stopped immediately. He had studied American amphibious assaults carefully. Tarawa had shown him the futility of beach defenses. Naval gunfire obliterated positions before Marines ever landed. Saipan demonstrated the disaster of futile banzai charges. Thousands of Japanese lives wasted without delaying American victory significantly. Iwo Jima would be different. Revolutionary strategy would be implemented. Defense in depth based on fortified underground positions. Designed to survive the heaviest bombardment. Built to inflict maximum casualties over extended periods. Rather than contesting beaches, Americans would be allowed to land. Draw them inland. Destroy them from prepared positions that naval gunfire could not reach. Engineers began construction of an elaborate underground fortress system immediately. The island's natural caves provided starting points. Volcanic rock offered construction material. 25% of the entire garrison was detailed to excavation work. A massive allocation drawing immediate criticism from subordinate officers. Men should be training for combat, not digging tunnels. But Kuribayashi understood something his critics did not. America's productive powers were beyond Japanese imagination. Japan had started a war with a formidable enemy. Bracing accordingly was essential. The engineering project unfolded over months, one of the most sophisticated defensive fortification efforts of the Pacific War. Mining engineers arrived from Japan to design the underground network. Blueprints were created for tunnels at varying levels. Proper ventilation was ensured. Effects of explosions near entrances were minimized. By February 1945, approximately 18 kilometers of tunnels connected defensive positions across the island. Soldiers assigned to tunnel duty worked in temperatures ranging from 30 to 50 degrees Celsius. Volcanic rock radiated intense heat. Underground passages became suffocating ovens. Men collapsed regularly from heat exhaustion. Fresh water remained critically scarce. Supplies were limited to what submarines could deliver. Surface vessels running the gauntlet of American submarines provided additional resources when possible. Mount Suribachi's northern slope alone harbored several thousand yards of tunnels. The main command bunker sat 20 meters underground, near the village of Kita. Multiple chambers connected by 150 meters of passageways. Kuribayashi established his war room here. The garrison defending the island represented a cross-section of Japan's military at war's end. The 109th Division provided the core fighting force. Approximately 13,000 Army personnel organized into two independent mixed brigades. The 2nd Independent Mixed Brigade under Major General Kotao Osuga numbered 5,000 men. The 145th Infantry Regiment, commanded by Colonel Masuo Ikeda, contributed 2,700 soldiers. Naval forces totaled 7,500 men from the 27th Air Flotilla under Rear Admiral Toshinosuke Ichimaru. Unlike veteran formations from China or early Pacific campaigns, many defenders were recent conscripts with minimal training. Some were middle-aged reservists, called up as Japan-scraped manpower reserves. Others were support troops pressed into combat roles as the empire's strategic situation deteriorated. Administrative personnel found themselves carrying rifles instead of clipboards. Colonel Baron Takichi Nishi commanded the 26th Tank Regiment. Born into nobility on July 12, 1902, he had won gold in show jumping at the 1932 Los Angeles Olympics. Hollywood celebrity status followed. He befriended Charlie Chaplin, Douglas Fairbanks, and Mary Pickford. His widow later recalled his despondency after Pearl Harbor. War with America was strategic madness, but duty bound him regardless. On July 18, 1944, while sailing from Pusan, Korea to Iwo Jima, the transport carrying Nishi's regiment was torpedoed by USS Kobia. All 28 tanks sank to the Pacific bottom. Nishi returned to Tokyo for replacements. He managed to secure 22 tanks. During this brief home visit, he made a final trip to see his beloved horse Uranus, the mount that had carried him to Olympic glory. Through late 1944, defensive preparations intensified. American aircraft and submarines provided constant harassment. The defenders discovered that volcanic ash mixed with cement created superior concrete. Pillboxes were constructed with reinforced walls 4 feet thick. Direct hits from naval shells could be withstood. Approximately 300 anti-aircraft guns were installed. 33 naval guns ranging from 4.7 to 6 inches. 438 artillery pieces. 69 anti-tank guns. Nishi's 22 tanks were dug into fixed positions, buried up to their turrets to serve as fortified artillery emplacements. Gasoline generators powered radios and lighting underground. Hundreds of hidden artillery and mortar positions were placed across the island. Every part of Iwo Jima was transformed into a potential killing zone, subject to defensive fire from multiple concealed positions. Kuribayashi's defensive philosophy broke fundamentally with Japanese military tradition. He explicitly forbade banzai charges. Such mass frontal assaults had characterized Japanese defensive tactics throughout the Pacific War. Soldiers launching suicidal attacks that fulfilled cultural expectations of honorable death, but accomplished nothing militarily. Kuribayashi argued that charging into American guns was purposeless suicide. Instead, every Japanese soldier received orders to kill at least 10 Americans before dying. The goal was not victory, which was impossible. Maximum attrition was the objective. This strategy created deep divisions within the officer corps. Vice Admiral Sadaichi Matsunaga clashed openly with Kuribayashi over defensive plans. He wanted strong beach positions to contest American landings directly. Kuribayashi relieved Matsunaga of command. Rear Admiral Ichimaru replaced him, more willing to coordinate with Army defensive plans. By December 1944, February 11, 1945 was established as the target completion date for defensive preparations. American submarines and aircraft continued harassment. Additional personnel arrived through January. The final garrison totaled between 21,000 and 23,000 men. Supply levels remained woefully inadequate. Defenders had ammunition for only 60% of what doctrine considered necessary for single-division engagement. Food supplies were calculated to last 4 months maximum. Freshwater remained critically scarce. Approximately 1,500 Japanese troops had been lost when transport ships were sunk by American submarines en route to the island. Life before the invasion was characterized by constant work, insufficient supplies, growing tension. Soldiers lived in caves and tunnels, sleeping on volcanic rock, breathing sulfur-tainted air. The island earned its name from volcanic gases permeating everything. No trees existed, no vegetation beyond scrub grass. Heat was relentless. Men developed heat rash, dysentery, various tropical diseases. Medical supplies were limited. Poor nutrition and unsanitary conditions took terrible tolls. Many soldiers died of disease before American forces arrived. Yet Kuribayashi insisted on sharing his men's hardships. He refused special privileges. Former subordinates reported that the general regularly visited wounded enlisted men in hospital, behavior virtually unheard of for general staff officers. When water rations were reduced, Kuribayashi accepted the same limited allocation as the lowest-ranking private. His letters home during this period revealed a thoughtful man who loved his family, worried about their future, accepted his own death as necessary sacrifice. To his wife Yoshi, he wrote in November 1944, "You must not expect my survival. The enemy may land soon. Once they do, we must follow the fate of those on Attu and Saipan. Our officers and men know about death very well. I am sorry to end my life here fighting the United States, but I want to defend this island as long as possible, to delay enemy air raids on Tokyo. Watch out for your health and live long. The future of our children will not be easy either. Please take care of them after my death." These words demonstrated that Kuribayashi harbored no illusions about his fate or the battle's outcome. American B-24 and B-25 bombers began raiding the island June 15, 1944. 74 consecutive days of bombardment followed, the longest pre-invasion bombardment of the Pacific War. These attacks cratered airfields and destroyed surface structures. Limited effectiveness against underground fortifications resulted. American intelligence assessments severely underestimated both defensive preparations and garrison strength. Reconnaissance photographs showed cratered airfields and destroyed buildings. Planners concluded that months of bombing had significantly degraded Japanese capabilities. Intelligence estimates suggested the garrison numbered perhaps 13,000 to 15,000 troops, well below actual strength. More critically, aerial photographs could not penetrate underground to reveal extensive tunnel networks. February 16, 1945, marked the beginning of the final assault phase. Pre-invasion naval bombardment began with battleships, cruisers, destroyers unleashing devastating firepower. Major General Harry Schmidt of the Marine Corps had requested 10 days of heavy bombardment. He received only 3 days. Impaired by weather conditions, Japanese defenders took shelter in their tunnels, waiting out the storm of steel. On February 17th, 12 LCI gunboats moved close to shore to support underwater demolition teams. The Japanese emerged from positions and opened fire with everything available. Gunboats were devastated. LCI 449 sunk. Several others severely damaged. 170 casualties total. But the sacrifice revealed many hidden Japanese positions. Battleships Tennessee and Idaho moved within 2,500 yards of shore on February 18th, pulverizing specific targets with devastating accuracy. Inside the tunnels, bombardment tested defenders' endurance and sanity. The mountains seemed to shake with each impact. Dust and debris fell constantly from tunnel ceilings. Men prayed, sat in silence, wrote final letters to families they would never see again. Americans fired approximately 22,000 shells at Iwo Jima during pre-invasion bombardment. Each one a reminder of industrial might arrayed against them. Yet Kuribayashi's defensive strategy proved sound. Underground positions survived largely intact. At Air 859 on February 19, 1945, the first wave of Marines from 4th and 5th Divisions hit the beaches. Amphibious tractors seemed endless. Wave after wave approaching shore. Offshore, support fleets stretched to the horizon. Hundreds of ships representing naval power beyond anything defenders had witnessed. Landing craft struggled through heavy surf and steep beaches. Marines jumped from tractors and immediately sank ankle-deep into loose volcanic sand, struggling to move inland. Volcanic ash was soft and loose. Vehicles floundered, unable to gain traction. Kuribayashi's orders were explicit: let them land, let them pack the beaches, then open fire with everything. For nearly 30 minutes, Marines advanced with surprisingly light resistance. Then Kuribayashi gave the order. Every artillery piece opened fire simultaneously. Every mortar. Every machine gun position. The beaches became a killing zone. Marines dove for cover that did not exist. Japanese artillery, pre-registered on every beach sector, fired with devastating accuracy. Machine gun fire swept approaches to the terrace marking beach edges. By day's end, approximately 30,000 Marines had landed, establishing a beachhead stretching the width of the southern island end. They had cut Mount Suribachi off from the rest of the defenses. But the cost was tremendous. Over 500 Marines killed, more than 1,800 wounded on the first day alone. That first night, Marines prepared for massive banzai charges characterizing previous Pacific battles. But Kuribayashi's orders forbade such attacks. The night passed with only minor probing attacks, leaving Marines confused but grateful. The battle for Mount Suribachi began earnestly on February 20th. The 28th Marine Regiment started the slow, brutal process of reducing Japanese defenses. Marines advanced yard by yard, using flamethrowers to clear bunkers, explosives to collapse tunnel entrances, grenades to kill defenders in pillboxes. The Japanese fought from prepared positions, falling back through connecting tunnels when positions became untenable, emerging to fight again from new angles. Colonel Kanehiko Atsuchi commanded the Mount Suribachi garrison of approximately 1,800 men, conducting defense with skill and determination. By February 23rd, after 3 days of continuous fighting, a Marine patrol reached Suribachi's summit. They raised a small American flag at 10:20 hours, triggering cheers from Marines across the beachhead. Later that day, a second patrol brought a larger flag to replace the first. Associated Press photographer Joe Rosenthal captured this second flag raising, what would become one of World War II's most iconic images. But for Japanese defenders remaining in tunnels beneath the mountain, the flag meant battle would continue underground. Isolated groups of soldiers would continue fighting in the Suribachi tunnel complex for weeks, after the mountain's surface had been declared secured. Main Japanese defensive positions lay in the northern part of the island, where Kuribayashi had concentrated his strength in terrain favoring defenders. The northern highlands consisted of broken ground, ravines, rocky ridges, countless caves transformed into an engineered killing zone, with mutually supporting defensive positions. Marines gave northern strongpoints names reflecting the horror of fighting there. The Meat Grinder, Turkey Knob, Hill 382, Amphitheater, Bloody Gorge. Each represented a complex of fortified positions requiring reduction through direct assault. 3rd, 4th, and 5th Marine Divisions attacked these positions simultaneously, advancing slowly against fanatical resistance. Fighting in northern Iwo Jima introduced American forces to the full horror of Kuribayashi's defensive system. Japanese positions that appeared destroyed would come alive with renewed fire hours later. Defenders emerged from tunnels to reoccupy bunkers. Marines developed specialized tactics for tunnel warfare, using flamethrowers to clear connected chambers, explosives to collapse tunnel sections. Flamethrower teams became essential despite suffering casualty rates approaching 92%. Marine tank battalions found their M4A3R3 flame tanks in constant demand. By battle's end, 5th Division flame tanks were expending between 5,000 and 10,000 gallons of napalm daily. As February turned to March, Japanese defensive positions became increasingly desperate. Casualties mounted daily. Food supplies dwindled to starvation rations. Water became so scarce that men suffered severe dehydration while fighting. Medical supplies ran out entirely, leaving wounded to suffer without basic pain relief. Ammunition stocks approached exhaustion for some calibers. Yet defense continued. Kuribayashi's strategy of maximum attrition was working. American casualties had already exceeded all pre-invasion estimates. The 5-day battle had stretched into its 3rd week. No end in sight. Baron Nishi's tank regiment, with tanks destroyed or immobilized, fought as infantry from prepared positions in northern highlands. American forces knew Nishi was on the island. Intelligence officers broadcast appeals for him to surrender, pointing out that the world would regret losing such a celebrated figure. Nishi never responded. He remained with his men, sharing their hardships, maintaining discipline and morale, even as the situation became hopeless. On approximately March 22, 1945, Nishi was killed in action. Exact circumstances remain unknown. His body was never identified among thousands of Japanese dead in northern highlands. Some accounts suggest ritual suicide. Others indicate death leading troops in combat. Nishi was posthumously promoted to colonel. Awarded the Order of the Rising Sun, 3rd class, gold rays with neck ribbon. By mid-March, American advances had compressed remaining Japanese forces into an area of less than 1 square mile, in the northern tip of the island. Kuribayashi's command structure remained intact. Communication lines still functioned through tunnel networks. On March 17th, the general sent his final message to Imperial headquarters in Tokyo. The battle is approaching its end. Strength under my command is now about 400. Tanks have invaded our last defense line at various sectors. They are now attacking our last stronghold. We continue to fight. I am sorry we could not have defended the island successfully. We are still fighting. His earlier message on March 16th had been even more poignant. I am very sorry because I can imagine the scenes of disaster in our empire. However, I comfort myself a little, seeing my officers and men die without regret. After struggling in this inch-by-inch battle against overwhelming enemy, with many tanks and being exposed to indescribable bombardments, Americans declared Iwo Jima secured on March 26, 1945, exactly 36 days after the invasion began. But fighting continued for weeks afterward. Japanese soldiers in sealed cave systems continued resisting, emerging at night to scavenge for food and water. Americans systematically sealed tunnel entrances with explosives, pumped seawater into cave systems, used grenades and flamethrowers to clear underground positions. Last organized resistance ended with Kuribayashi's death, believed to have occurred on March 26th when he led a final attack against American positions. On March 25, 1945, 300 of Kuribayashi's men mounted a final banzai attack against the order that had defined the general's entire defensive strategy. Kuribayashi's body was never found or identified. Rear Admiral Ichimaru also died during this final period. Casualty figures shocked both nations. American forces suffered 26,038 total casualties, including approximately 6,821 deaths. Marine casualties totaled 5,131 killed in action, died of wounds, or missing in action and presumed dead. More than twice as many Marines had been killed than in all of World War I. An additional 209 deaths occurred among Navy corpsmen and surgeons assigned to Marines. Approximately 19,217 Marines were wounded. This represented the only major Pacific battle where American casualties exceeded Japanese casualties, though Japanese combat deaths were 3 times American deaths. For Japan, the cost was even more catastrophic. Of approximately 21,000 defenders, only 183 survived the battle. A mere 216 were captured during actual fighting. The rest emerged from caves and tunnels in weeks and months afterward. 2 Japanese soldiers remained in hiding until January 6, 1949, nearly 4 years after the battle ended, finally surrendering after years of living in tunnel systems. Strategic value of Iwo Jima justified the terrible cost. Though this remained controversial, by war's end, 2,251 B-29 bombers made emergency landings on the island, saving an estimated 24,761 airmen, who would otherwise have ditched in the Pacific, or crashed attempting to reach the Marianas. The first B-29 to make emergency landing was Dynamite, which touched down on March 4, 1945. While fighting still raged in northern highlands, P-51 Mustang fighters based on Iwo Jima began escorting bombing raids to Tokyo and other Japanese cities. The island served as base for air-sea rescue operations, allowing faster response to downed air crews. The Battle of Iwo Jima produced 27 Medals of Honor, more than any other single battle in Marine Corps history, with 13 awarded posthumously. Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz, commenting on the battle, said, "Among Americans who served on Iwo Island, uncommon valor was a common virtue. The battle demonstrated that Japanese forces could inflict terrible casualties, even when facing overwhelming American superiority. Kuribayashi's tactics showed that determined defenders in prepared positions could extract horrific prices from attackers. Military planners projected that invasion of Japanese homelands would produce hundreds of thousands of American casualties if Japanese employed similar defensive tactics on larger scales. These projections contributed to the decision to use atomic weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki, rather than launch Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of Japan. For Japanese families of men who died on Iwo Jima, the battle's aftermath brought only grief without closure. Most of the dead were never recovered or identified. Families received notification of death in battle, but no bodies to bury, no graves to visit. This inability to properly honor the dead carried special significance in Japanese culture, where Buddhist tradition emphasized proper burial importance. Even decades after the war, Japanese search teams continued recovering remains from Iwo Jima's caves. Remains of more than 10,000 Japanese soldiers still rest under the island's soil. In immediate post-war years, the Battle of Iwo Jima remained largely forgotten in Japan. The nation was consumed with rebuilding from total defeat, processing horror of atomic bombing and firebombing that killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. Strategic bombing campaigns had killed approximately 900,000 Japanese civilians. Atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki killed an estimated 200,000 people. In this context, Iwo Jima was simply one more disaster, in a year of unprecedented national catastrophe. Decades later, historians and filmmakers began seriously examining the battle from defenders' perspectives. In 1970, Yoshi Kuribayashi represented Japanese families of war dead at a Tokyo luncheon with American veterans. In a speech, she thanked them for expressions of friendship, received a standing ovation. She later attended both 1985 and 1995 reunions of honor hosted on the island. The 1985 reunion of honor brought together former enemies as old men, their wartime hatred mellowed by decades of peace. They walked battlefields together, visiting places where they had tried to kill each other. Japanese veterans showed American Marines the tunnel systems they had defended. American veterans explained their tactics for reducing these defenses. Meetings were emotional, marked by tears, embraces, shared prayers for the dead. Veterans spoke of finding peace through reconciliation. Similar reunions continued at 5-year intervals, building bridges between former enemies. The physical island remains largely unchanged since 1945, preserved in its battle-scarred state. Today, it is officially known by its Japanese name, Iwo To. Civilian access is severely restricted, allowed only for memorial services attended by veterans and families of the fallen. Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force operates a small naval air facility. United States Navy occasionally uses the airfield for carrier landing practice, but mostly Iwo Jima remains a memorial to the dead, where thousands of Japanese soldiers remain entombed in sealed caves, where American and Japanese monuments stand side by side. Modern historians examining the battle with access to sources from both sides have reached generally consistent conclusions. Tactically, the battle demonstrated effectiveness of defense in depth when properly implemented. Kuribayashi's strategy inflicted maximum casualties and prolonged the battle far beyond American expectations, transforming what military planners expected to be a 5-day operation into a 36-day ordeal. Strategically, the island's value as emergency landing field and fighter base justified its capture, though debate continues whether the cost was proportionate to benefit. The battle showcased American industrial might and logistical capability, while demonstrating Japanese tactical skill, engineering prowess, the determination of defenders fighting from prepared positions. Cultural memory of Iwo Jima differs markedly between the United States and Japan. In America, the battle holds iconic status, exemplified by Rosenthal's photograph and the Marine Corps War Memorial in Arlington, Virginia. Marines learn about Iwo Jima during training. In Japan, awareness remained limited until 2006, when Clint Eastwood's film Letters from Iwo Jima brought renewed attention to defenders' perspectives. The film, shot in Japanese with Japanese actors, attempted to present the battle through Japanese eyes, based on General Kuribayashi's published letters, and the book So Sad to Fall in Battle by Kumiko Kakehashi. Tactical innovations developed during the Battle of Iwo Jima influenced military doctrine for decades. Combined arms tactics became standard practice. Importance of specialized weapons for reducing fortifications was recognized. Tunnel warfare techniques would be employed in later conflicts, particularly in Vietnam, where Vietnamese employed similar underground defensive systems. The battle demonstrated that even overwhelming firepower and numerical superiority could not eliminate the need for infantry to close with and destroy enemy in fortified positions. General Kuribayashi's letters from Iwo Jima provide unique insight into his state of mind as American invasion approached. His correspondence with wife Yoshi and children revealed a man who loved his family deeply, accepted his own death as inevitable, hoped his sacrifice would protect them. In one letter he expressed the philosophy that sustained him. If our children can live safely for one more day, it would be worth one more day that we defend this island. This belief sustained Japanese defenders through the hell of battle. Whether the battle truly protected the homeland for any meaningful length of time remains debatable. What cannot be debated is the sincerity of the belief and the determination it produced. The Battle of Iwo Jima stands as one of history's most brutal confrontations, a 36-day struggle where approximately 27,000 men died or were grievously wounded on an 8-square-mile island. It demonstrated war's terrible price, the courage of individuals caught in circumstances beyond their control, the possibility of reconciliation even after the most brutal conflicts. General Kuribayashi, Baron Nishi, Rear Admiral Ichimaru, and thousands of Japanese soldiers, whose names history never recorded, fought with extraordinary courage. For a cause already lost, following orders they could not refuse, dying for a homeland that would ultimately be saved not by their sacrifice, but by Japan's unconditional surrender 4 months later. The island itself stands as a monument to all who fought there, its volcanic rock forever associated with one of World War II's bloodiest battles. Tunnels that once sheltered desperate defenders now shelter only memories, and the remains of those who never left. Beaches where Marines struggled through volcanic sand are quiet now, disturbed only by occasional veterans or researchers visiting to pay respects. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi died as he had lived, with honor, courage, unwavering commitment to duty. His body was never found, but his legacy endures in letters he wrote to his family, in respect accorded him by American Marines who fought against his defensive genius, in the example he set of a commander who shared every hardship with his men. Baron Takeshi Nishi, the Olympic champion once celebrated in Hollywood, died fighting Americans he had once called friends, demonstrating war's tragedy that transforms friends into enemies. The 21,000 Japanese soldiers who defended Iwo Jima, most of whom died in the island's volcanic tunnels and caves, fought with extraordinary courage for a homeland they would never see again. Their sacrifice reminds us that courage exists on all sides of conflict, that ordinary men can display extraordinary valor when circumstances demand it, that even in war's darkest moments, honor and humanity can survive. The volcanic island of Iwo Jima, now officially called Iwo II, remains largely as it was in 1945, a memorial to courage, a testament to sacrifice, a reminder of war's terrible cost, and ultimately a symbol of the reconciliation possible between former enemies who choose peace over perpetual hatred. In the tunnels beneath the island, the remains of Japanese soldiers still rest, waiting for families who may never find them. Their presence transforms Iwo Jima from battlefield to sacred ground, where the dead of both nations deserve remembrance, where their sacrifice for causes they believed just merits respect across the decades. The Battle of Iwo Jima ended more than 7 decades ago, but its lessons remain relevant about the price of war, the courage of individuals, the possibility of reconciliation, and the enduring power of human sacrifice in service of beliefs larger than oneself. Today, when former enemies can walk the same battlefields as friends, Iwo Jima stands as proof that even the bloodiest conflicts can end in understanding, rather than eternal hatred. The volcanic rock that once witnessed such terrible violence now hosts ceremonies of remembrance, where Americans and Japanese honor their dead together, and pledge that such sacrifices will not be forgotten.